Hello, I'm Farris. I retired in 2003, and I served as in the athletic office from 1989 until 2003. And I never took Carl Gustafson's place, only took his position. Nobody could ever take Carl's place. But I grew up in northwest Arkansas when I was a little kid. We didn't do very good in farming, and my dad was bad health after the war, and we actually left there looking for work, and I was going to be a fifth grader, and we just spent about 5 months in a pickup truck looking for work, and it was about 2 weeks after Labor Day, and we were coming back through New Mexico. We'd gone through Oklahoma and Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. Came back to a town called Carlsbad, New Mexico. They had some potash mines, and my dad saw a school bus, and he said, I think school has started, so we need to stop and get you in school." So we stopped and rented a place so I could have a residence, and I started fifth grade there. Played everything growing up. Played all sports growing up in Carlsbad. It was a high school about the size of the east and north side. Integrated. New Mexico was integrated. So I grew up with black kids. Of course, I grew up with a lot of Hispanic kids, and played everything. And then went on to University of Arkansas on a track scholarship. Got injured in the late spring at the Southwest Conference meet. Came back in the fall, never did overcome it. Quit college, went home, get a job in a potash mine. And one of my high school coaches found out that I'd quit college. Got a hold of me and told me I'd never quit anything. I just changed, and told me that the coach had offered me a football scholarship at Eastern New Mexico. Still had it for me. So I transferred there, and I played football my last 3 years in college, and got a degree in secondary science, and that's what I did. I taught biology, I taught physics, I taught chemistry, and then I got into coaching. As an assistant coach, first coaching job I was at, the head coach got fired. We all got fired. Moved to another town, and stayed there for a year. Moved down to Odessa, and worked for a great guy. And he got fired. We all got fired, and the new coach hired me, and I stayed there as an assistant coach to him, mainly because of my teaching field. And about 3 years later, he got out of the business, and they hired me. So I got fired at Odessa High, and I got the head coaching job 3 years later. So that was a strange deal. They called it Odessa Regular and called Odessa Premium across town, and everybody had heard of Odessa Permian. But I really didn't have plans to leave. And I got a call from Jack Jordan one day and asked me if I'd be interested in coming to John Marshall High School. And he told me all about the school, and then I had some friends that told me I was just a little tired after 6 years of playing against Permian, Abilene, Cooper, Midland Lee, Abilene High, San Angelo Central. Not that our kids didn't play hard and act right, but only one team got in the playoff, and 4 or 5 of the best teams in the state were in our district. So I came down to Marshall, stayed 3 years, and an opportunity presented itself where I would become the head football coach and athletic director in Dickinson, Texas, down in Galveston County. And it was the only high school in town. Had just built Clark. Lost about 115 players to Clark one day, and that had something to do with me wanting to go to a one high school town. So I stayed there at Dickinson for about 10 years. We had some good teams, had some good players. It too was in a very tough district. I got a call from Round Rock Independent School District, and they offered me the athletic director's position there. I took it for 1 year, and then in the spring, Mr. Jordan called me back and said that Marvin Gustafson was going to retire, and actually wanted me to come here and take his position, which I did. That was in 1989. Marvin was having some bad health at that time, and just ran out of luck. Through the years, I guess I never really thought I'd be anything but a coach. I love being around coaches. I love being around kids. I love being around school teachers. And for all you folks out there who are school teachers, you know, you were probably to a lot of kids, you were the one that gave them the encouragement to go on when they didn't get it at home. You were the major influence in their life. Many of the people who we have in the school business today chose to be in the school business because of the people who taught them. Whether you taught kindergarten or you taught all the way through high school, your influence on kids was just the same. Maybe even more so at the early grades. I know. I coached a lot of kids that came out of government housing. I still get phone calls from kids that are 60 years old that just every once in a while would just call you. But we in the school business, we don't back up to anybody as far as doing what it takes to make this a better place to live. We live in a country that's a great country, and school teachers make what it is. Public school teachers are the ones. Public school teachers are the ones that take every kid, regardless. So my appreciation to you, my appreciation to those people who worked, who are elected officials in this district for years, people like Raul Fernandez on the Board of Trustees, Mr. Hatchett, who did a great job representing Jay for years and years. We were single member districts. Ray Lopez did a wonderful job. And then when I came here in '89, Katie Reed was on the board. She's been here ever since. Melissa Chumley's been on the board for years. Bobby Blunt has been on the board for years, serving our district in good and not bad years. But sometimes there were some lean years. Sometimes financially it was tough. In saying that, working with people like Mike McClung and Al Rath in transportation, when we had more trips than we had buses and we had to figure it out. People who worked in the central office, I got to work for Mr. Cody, got to work for Mr. Jordan, Mr. Rollinson, Mr. Folks, Dr. Folks. There was a superintendent that came in and stayed about a year and a half. I never know him very well. He was kind of in and out. But now we have Ryan Wood, Dr. Wood has done a great job for this district, growing so fast, and he grew up in this district and knows the history, and just a perfect guy for that job. And he hired Stan, and Stan has done a great job keeping up with the growth, and been able to, with the support of the superintendent and the board, to expand the athletic office to people who have been successful coaches and teachers in this district. And there's not a better athletic office in the state than this one right here. I know I've been all over the state, but these are homegrown people. Then there's people who aren't in athletics, guys like Calvin Buckholz and many others throughout this district that have been to every game, have done things for every program, whether it be band program or athletic program, but always there for all of us. But in saying band, I can't express enough my appreciation to those people who served in Northside Boosters Association, the band parents and athletic parents that work these concession stands for all of our games. Professional people, I mean, service with a smile, their professionalism, clean. Everything that they did was for our kids in athletics and, well, into the general fund actually. And we was redistributed where it needed to be. But we had football games that also were band concerts. So every football game had a halftime show, and both bands performed. And when it came time to sell season tickets, half the season tickets we sold were to band parents. And the other half the season tickets we sold were to parents and grandparents and neighbors. So regardless of how big this district is, it's still a big family, and athletics is something that kind of is a smaller circle that we can all bond with. I don't think that we could be in a better place than we are right now. I was asked to maybe say a couple of things I was most proud of. Is Mr. Jordan insisted that we do something about a differentiated playoff proposal. He was not satisfied with the fact that a school with 1,800 kids had to play a school with 6,000 kids in the highest classification. So he asked me to write up, which I did, a differentiated playoff proposal, which it didn't fall kindly with the UIL that we were doing this. They didn't want to make a change, but we got it through the UIL, we got it through the Legislative Council, we got it to the State School Board, and passed what is now Division I and Division II, where it added teams. They played longer, more people got to play, more bands got to play, more pep squads got to play, cheerleaders. Their involvement was monitored every day, whether they were at school, whether they were attending class, whether they were passing everything. So it's been good, not only for athletics, but for academics. Then a few years later, when Mr. Rawlinson, who was a great influence on me, and Charles Brown and Dean Kruger, I went to him and told him that some of the affluent schools in the state were paying people to come in and train their kids in the summertime in weights and strength and conditioning, and which was absolutely against the amateur rule to start with, and that wasn't fair. But if you could afford $300 at a child, you could have somebody from Plano come into your building and use your equipment and charge you to work you out on weights and conditioning. So I told our coaches that we weren't going to have anybody in our school district do this as long as everybody couldn't do it. So if some kids at Clark could afford it, or kids at Marshall could afford it, there would be some kids who couldn't afford it, and kids at Jay couldn't afford it, and Holmes couldn't afford it. So I couldn't have afforded it. So he supported the notion that I come up with something, and I used the same process and developed a plan for strength and conditioning, to where the coaches could, at your respective schools, could have it for 6 weeks. It was co-educational for incoming 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, and 12th graders. UIL wasn't crazy about that, but we got it passed through the Legislative Council and the State School Board, and we've had it now for almost 20 years, and it's very, very effective. And so now every child has a chance to get stronger and faster and be physically conditioned to start out in the fall. And those two things I guess I'm the most proud of, and the fact that I had a chance to work with human resources with Rudy Pena and Carlos Ortiz, Caroline Warney, Sharon Garrett, travel to Michigan, Georgia, job fairs here in Texas, in New Mexico, just hiring teachers. I helped hire teachers in the district, some coaches, some weren't coaches. But I traveled with those people, and they always helped me when it came time to hire a coach. They made time to interview that coach, that prospective coach, at 7:30 in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. And the fact that they were able to do that, other school districts were interviewing them too. Our human resources, I think, is the one that opened the door for us. And through the years, I think I probably was involved in hiring over 600 coaches. We had a process that on all of our head football coaches, it involved the superintendent and the principal and myself. I would recommend to the superintendent some names, and to the principal, and if they agreed on those names, then I had already done the research and got references on them, and found out who they were, where they came from, people they had coached against, people they'd coached with, what kind of people were they. Did they care about kids first? in the classroom first, their behavior first. Did they coach hard and act right? Did their kids practice hard and play hard and act right? That's how we looked and evaluated our coaches. That's how we evaluated our teams, realizing half the time we were going to lose. When our teams played each other, one of them was going to win, one of them was going to lose. How they behaved was important, and I think it is the most important thing. And it's not a right to be an athlete, it's a privilege to be an athlete. And being with that privilege, you're held responsible to your behavior. As a coach, it's not a right to be a coach, it's a privilege to be a coach. And you're held responsible for your behavior. And in saying that, I feel like I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I married a school teacher. She's taught head of the math department over Coach Stevenson, taught mathematics for 35 years. My son had a chance to do a lot of things. He quit after 6 months of having a big time education at Texas, working with computers, to go back to school to be a football coach. My daughter didn't do that. She ended up being very successful. But going through school, she was president of her class every year. She owes everything she has to public schools, just like me. And she's very successful now in Washington, D.C. But I want to thank Northside for the opportunity they provided me, provided my wife, provided all the kids that walk through our doors every day. And all these facilities we have around here are for the kids. And these facilities, this football facility right here hosts football games, playoff football games, contracted to other school districts using it for neutral sites. Our soccer field is right on that football field, same thing. Our athletics program back there is as good as any in the nation. Our facility back there was used in the last Olympics by Olympic swimmers trained here. This beautiful basketball, volleyball facility right here is used 1,000 times a year. And we're blessed. We're blessed that our Board of Education and people in this community say it's necessary to have these kind of facilities.